It is time to look at the gunnel for Scout here. Now, in the kit, I don't know, I think I might have explained it in a previous video, but in the kit, they're trying to keep the weight down, so the gunnels or guard, well, there actually is no guards because there's nothing on the outside. The in-whale is typically a piece of foam that gets glued onto the inside of the hull structure. Then there is a piece of plywood, marine ply, that would cap it, like so. There is another piece of marine ply that will go on the inside and underside, something like that. So you put these three pieces on, and then this would get capped. The customer's not too happy about that. I don't think it was all clear in the purchasing sort of, online site. So we are going with solid rails of mahogany, which will nicely match most of the planking. I've already got one in. So the first thing I did in figuring out how to set up the solid in-whales was they've given us a little deck here. That fits into there. I just pressed it in. I then measured across at a certain point here, sort of perpendicular to some more sort of center line. And then I just measured that bevel. Come on. I measured this bevel to get an approximation of what the angle should be for cutting down so that the two in-whales will meet on a nice center line. We'll put that into there. So that's the angle for cutting on the center line. And then we've got a bit of a bevel heading down, so I'm laying it on top of the gunnel and just kind of butting it up to the fillet inside the stem there. Doesn't have to be great on that angle. So that would be here. So we're going to try and cut that bevel with a pull saw on the bench. Okay, with that cut made, let's just see how close we are. Not close at all. So, we've got extra length on the stern end there, so looks to me like this should be more of that nature. Do we make a second cut or try to plane that down? The other thing we can look at is the length of that is pretty well right on 1 inch, and that would make sense. That line right there. So back to the bench. Alright, it was almost impossible to make the cut with the saw because it was only taking ever so little off. So now, option is we could press them both in here and make what we call a kerf cut. Now I also think that I've kind of pushed out the planking actually at the top here. The fillet only went up so high because I didn't want to get the in-whales into sort of the fine point here. Nevertheless, I think still is off of the starboard side here that needs to be beveled. I can't really take too much more for this side or we come up short on the stern end because this one is a perfect fit right now. So with these two pinched, what I'm going to use is a flush cutting saw, so it only has kerf on one side. Theoretically I shouldn't be removing anything from here. Then we're going to tap the gunnel forward a little bit and do it again. I'd say we pinch all that closed. We've got a nice tight joint on the top surface and down on the inside. You can see it on the camera. Now, got to run back, clamp this in place, and get the other end. Method to sort of determine where this bevel needs to be cut. I'm going to measure back if I can. Might have to actually spring this out a bit. I'm going to measure back exactly 12 inches from the top here. Then I kind of clamp this in place where we think it's going to go. What I want to find is where approximately that 12-inch mark is. I say it's right there. And then we go back. We mark 12 inches forward, mark it on the inwale, and go back to 12 inches. That mark there should be the very top of the gunnel with the bevel down. That bevel down is about that. So first, square across. Then we shall mark bevel. Gotta get rid of this mask. Constantly hangs right in the way of my eyes, my view. So that will be the bevel down. A little off because I need to first measure this bevel here. That's going to go like so. And from that point, I need to bevel down. Just going to cut that right in place, seem to work on the other side. Got a little bit outside that line, so I can always shave to it. Okay, we know we're probably going to be a little bit long on there, but angles look pretty good. I can see that I obviously have not followed the angle down the bottom here. Can do is just kind of run my pencil down there. That's going to give me the angle correct. The top is good. It's the bevel undercutting that's off. So what I'm going to do is I'm taking this out. Got my marks here where it goes back in. I'll do that on the bow as well. And we just got to kind of go easy springing it out of here. Things can go flying fast. Well, not dangerously, but can startle like heck out of you. Now on this one I'm just going to take it over to the disc sander because I can't actually shave that very well. I don't need to necessarily fit the bow end in. If I come in here, I should be able to push this into my line. We are about a 1/8 of an inch too long. Which should almost be that. I'm just going to keep hitting it on the disc sander until my two lines meet up here. They're so close is that we've got to fill it in the corner there. But I think our angles are right. So, let's see if we can round off the back side of it. That's a pretty nice fit. I don't know, we're so close to the line. I'm going to fit this whole thing in and see if it'll spring into place. Bang right on. I'm going to do a dry fit. I might be able to just run the blade or the saw through there as well. On the outwales, we didn't want to see the top of the planking here, the edges of the plywood. So, two options were to put the in-wales on, out-wales on, raise them up just a tad, and maybe put a little strip of wood in there as an accent piece. But I think what I'm going with here is I've actually just sort of cut a dado into the outwale, which will go on first, and it basically fits right over the planking. And then the in-wale will match that. So it'll look like a solid rail for the most part. So what I'm doing now is I've just dry fit it, but when we come in here, it's hitting sort of that little tiny overlap notch of the transom. Option will be to either notch out the in-wale to fit over it, which I think is probably the way to go because that is the easiest in the sense that all I have to do is knock off the little overlap dado there. So put my saw up here and I'm just going to make a mark basically. And I'm just going to take a chisel and knock that off. That didn't turn out as planned, only because it does not. It actually needed a slight taper, not straight through, but a slight taper because of the angle the planking is coming in at. Now these are all going to get glued in, so I don't know. Bit of epoxy in there, or try. Okay, well, this is the piece that should go in there. Just need to sand a little burr on the end there, so that goes in. That's going to have to do. So that is the piece. We put it aside. We won't make the same mistake on the other side. Following a dry fit, I'm just going to put some masking tape on here so I can have a little bit of an easier time cleaning up epoxy that's all squeezing out. And then I just need to scuff sand the planking here a little bit. Make sure that I get a good bond. Alright, I have mixed up some epoxy. I've used a fast hardener and thickened it with a bunch of silica. Well, sorry, not silica, but high density filler. And then I kind of added a bit of a fairing compound color just to, you know, make sure there's no big white line of epoxy glue line that may be showing. So I'm going to liberally put this on here, the inside of the outwale. Now the last little thing that I'm not too sure about here is right up here in the bow between the deck doubler, which is going to support the main deck. There's quite a big gap in here. I wasn't sure whether I was really supposed to put that massive of a fillet in there, but the main deck doesn't go any closer in. It's rounded at the bow end as well. So what I'm going to do is I have made up a little piece here of marine ply, and I'm just going to glue it underneath and then fill it with epoxy. Very close to the end. So I think we need to come back just a tad. Got a tiny little gap in here, but I can do that by just tapping from the bow aft. And then we're going to need to add some more clamps. I just need, so with the outwheel on, I just need to clean up a little bit of squeeze out here so that I can put the inwheel in and match it up. Now I did make the small dado just a little bit heavier than the plywood itself so that I could have the opportunity to shave this down, because I didn't really want any gaps when the two pieces go together. So we're just going to run this along here and see if we can find any big lumps of epoxy. I'm just going to take my cabinet scraper and give it all a good with the inwheels just clamped in there for 36 hours. Look how much shape they've held. It's going to make it a little easier to put them in. So that is that side there. So let us just mark this just in case, or did I already? So this is starboard. Port. So that should fit in place. Pretty nicely. So next, I'm just going to take my laminate trimmer and route the bottom of it. I'm not going to bother with the top of them until I determine where oarlocks need to go, where decks need to go, and quarter knees. But before we do, I should sort of figure out where knees are going. Cup's getting a little warm in my hands, so I am just trying to dispense it from the cup onto the little piece as fast as I can here right now, because once it's spread out thin, it's not going to kick off as fast. And come on here. Okay, I think I need to get this in there. It is starting to get into a paste. Okay, there's not any glue going in there at all. So here's the situation we have is, for some reason the two ends are not coming together, even though they fit perfectly well before. So sticking a bunch of epoxy in there everywhere. I can get it to squeeze together. I just need some blocking and some clamping. But you know, it's when you've got these odd angles, it's never easy to get a clamp onto things. What it seems to be doing is pushing this one back, so these are sort of coming on this angle here. Maybe because this is back so far. Let's try going with what we had before, which is just equidistance. And this end whale here is just a tad bit lower. See if I can tap it up at all without losing all my progress. Gotten it pretty close on cleaning up this squeeze out here. It's kind of the consistency now of thick caulking. And I didn't think it was going to take that long. Otherwise, I would have used a slower hardener, because I was really pushing it on getting it out of the cup, onto the work, and into the boat without it kicking off. Well, I'm really hoping that that thickened epoxy inside the inside stem is really going to hold the bow together. It looks like it is. Okay, come on. Alright, so that's held together quite nicely until we get a nice breast hook in here. So we're not going to use this plywood piece. I mean, I know it's all to keep things super light, but that's not really an issue for Doug, so we're going to go and make ourselves a nice mahogany deck in there. I think that's where we're going to stop this episode on putting the gunnels in. There certainly is some cleanup to do, some rounding over to do, trimming ends, and a little bit more because I'm actually going to put a little cap on the end because the gunnels don't really come to any finished end up the bow. And then I'm also actually going to be adding an external stem to protect the end of the plywood and kind of clean it up and make it look a little bit tidier. So thank you very much for watching. Hey, if you really like this video, give me a thumbs up. Maybe consider becoming a subscriber. And we'll see you next time as I start to work on installing the deck, which you can see is actually laying in there now.